And we're recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new starting, I don't know, season session program of exploring the illusion of me. We had a really great 6 week program going on before with about 6 or 8 of us, depending on how many showed up on the calls, and we had some really great discussions. So most or many of us wanted to continue on with it. So we haven't. Today we're back, and I've invited. It's open today to new people, so they can see what we're all about, and what we talk about, and participate as well. And hopefully, And then if you guys like it, who's watching this, and maybe I'll make this public as well. Then you're free to sign up and join in. Um, Make sure I'm recording. Looks like I'm recording. So I'm Jill Whalen from whatdidyoudowithjill.com, which seems to be running slow today for some reason. I have a ticket into my server, so if anyone tries to go to my site right now, it may or may not work. I must have got so many views on yesterday's blog post. I'm sure that's that's probably what crashed my server. Which brings me to actually something that I wanted to talk about. I don't know how many of you if any of you had a chance to read the blog post, but in a way, it was very much about what we're talking about in this group, um, in terms of sort of non-duality. We don't really call it that, but a lot of what we talk about is non-duality, that the whole world is the whole universe, well, it's not even this world. Everything is one. We're all one. um, um, it's hard to describe, but if you haven't had a chance to read my blog post, was called All the World's a Stage, like Shakespeare said. As it turns out, when I looked that quote up, people were saying he was talking about that it's different stages in life that we all go through, as opposed to it being a stage of, like a play or a theater, which I thought was odd, being as it was Shakespeare, but he may have meant both. But in my blog post, I was saying about how I used the metaphor of the stage as the entire universe. That the universe was a stage, and I named him. I named it a him Mo, just for purposes of being able to write it. And the entire universe was this stage, and then there were actors and props and scenery that were created out of the stage, and were still the stage. It's almost impossible to put into words, but the thing is, the actors don't realize that they are just actors putting on a play. So they're having all these storylines going on, they're acting out their parts, thinking that that is life, not knowing that they are the stage itself. And the stage itself is also enjoying everything, everything that goes on, everybody's stories. I can tell when I'm trying to put this into words that it was much easier for me to write about it than to even talk about it, because it sounds ridiculous in saying it out loud now. But I encourage people to read it if you haven't. And I know, Rui, I think you read it recently. Adriana, you read it as well. I'd be interested in your guys' comments at all on it, if either or both of you would like to. Yeah. Can you unmute, or Adriana? I see
Yeah,
your.
it's
Yeah.
it's. I can understand you were having troubles to pull this together. You were saying it took you 6 months to write this one, but it's all of bringing it together. Whatever we're talking about, the three principles, not taking things personally, together with the non-duality stuff, and I think you did a great job. Um, it feels to me that I have to read it a few more times, although I really got it, what you were trying to say. That part with the gig is up, right? So it's all like you're watching the play, and the actors are in the play, they don't actually know they're in a play, right? They act as if all is real. And it's hard to explain in words, as you're saying, guys. It's really hard because it's
I
the
know,
same.
as I was trying to say it, it wasn't coming out.
How the hell do you say it? Again, we talked for 6 weeks about the same thing. How do you express this into words? What we all, at least some of us, already got from the non-duality, from the three principles. How do you say what is it like for each one of you? But I think you found a good metaphor. I saw your message towards Michael Neal too. Maybe he can tell you how does it look like to him. Yeah. So I don't know what else he liked it. Did he answer?
Yeah, he did.
Okay,
he said it brought him back to his old theater days, and he thought it was a cool metaphor. I was like, yay.
Yeah. No, it's good, but it's good in a very different way compared to your other posts, I would say. Well, and I know why. I think I know why. Because in the prior ones, usually you take a situation that a lot of us maybe we experience, right? You describe it in generic enough terms that we can each recognize ourselves into that situation. But this one is much more broad, let's say. What you were trying to describe here is much harder to describe in a few words, or it's a little difficult to even relate to if you didn't really get what we're talking about, or if you didn't try to dismantle it and talk about it.
Somebody commented on the post and said, I've been reading your stuff for a little while, and I don't know what you're talking about here. But how I commented, if I can see it on the server, I just said basically the story is what it's saying is that it's our life. Our life is like a big play we're putting on, but we don't know it. We think it's real, and so we act accordingly. With all our real life dramas and that ensue, and all our anxiety and worries. But when we know it's really just play acting, we can simply have fun with it. And then I said, you may resonate more with life being a game or a dream, because those are other. I've actually resonated with those more. Like the game thing for me, I've thought of it for a long time, of life being a game, like a video game almost. Or a roller coaster ride too. I was talking to somebody earlier, a friend of mine, a 3P friend earlier, and we were talking about that, the roller coaster, because like we go on, we know it's going to be scary, ups and downs on a roller coaster, and we go on it anyway on purpose to feel all those ups and downs. And I don't know whether we come into this life on purpose, if we make deals ahead of time or whatever, like some people might think. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but we're here in this universe to experience all the ups and the downs, and but we prefer to have all the ups usually, not so much the downs. But and the difference, like you said, Adriana, that it's different than my usual blog post, because so much of what I usually write about is real life, is the story. It's how to make your story better, how to make your play happier, a happier story, how to make your dream better, which is good too, because it's the psychology. If we're going to be in this world, we might as well live it more happily. But also when you see that, if you can just catch a glimpse, I don't see it like I wrote about it. That's why it was so hard for me to write. I spent all day yesterday agonizing over just trying to write it, like it, because it has to come through me, because I don't really get it myself. So it that's why it didn't go out till like 7 p.m. or whatever it was. But I see glimpses. I know, I believe it. I know it's true, but I don't see the oneness. I know we've talked about that before in this group. Like, I can't really fathom that you guys are all me, like that doesn't hit me. And I know some people do get more glimpses of that, which is pretty cool. Anybody else have anything to add? You can either wave or whatever,
Yeah.
or unmute. Go ahead, Rui.
Hi, everyone. No, I did relate with the post, and for me, for example, it works more the metaphor of the movie. So like the, the like the projection. I think Michael Neal also used that metaphor at some point. Like,
I can never get that one.
yeah, it's like the screen. So I would say maybe conscious would be the screen where everything gets projected, right? So, but once it's on, like once you're alive, it's constantly projecting. So even when you go to sleep, you're still projecting into. So it's almost like you have different resources that you access it depending where you are in your life or where you are during the day or if it's evening but it's like it's constantly on, right? So we can't get away of our experience, never, until we don't, until it really finished. But yeah. But I struggle with, like you said, so I don't see it all the time. So because that's the thing, like it is so real that and it's always on. So I guess you have to put some time aside and you have to stop and actually focus on thinking about it, right? Otherwise life just drag you around and you just go and yeah, be part of the movie in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, and that to me, I don't know that you have to think about it so much as, when you have insights, or to me, awareness is what keeps us from being dragged around so much by our thoughts. At least that's if that's what you mean. Because I mean, I felt like my whole life, over 50 years of just being a victim of thought, as my book is, just not knowing that I had all that thought going on, and not realizing that that's what was all the conditioning, all the habits that I just you're like robots on autopilot, just doing whatever thoughts like happening without even knowing that they're there. Like I had no clue about all the thoughts. And then so you're just going through life like a robot, like an actor in a play without knowing it. Yeah. And then but once a little bit of awareness comes in, and for anyone who hasn't read my book, um, a big piece of, for me, what really helped was just observing my thoughts during the day, not necessarily meditating. You can do that too, but just noticing during the day thoughts that arise, and just start to be aware that there are thoughts going on in your head, and that really helped because it somehow, looking at the thoughts, they can't stand the light of day so much, and the layers of them started to go away a little bit, and my head cleared a bit, and that helps you to just not be dragged around as much, and then it just leaves room for insights and stuff too,
Yeah.
which is slightly off topic from what we're talking about, but it's all related.
Yeah, I think one thing that really also hit me the other day was the way you can, well, if you don't stop that process by questioning, and questioning would involve you thinking about it, but you're right. So you just go into autopilot. So thought automates everything it can, but unless you somehow get curious about something and questioning that, it tends to be ongoing and fast. So the way to slow down, if not talking about a technique now, but the way to slow down would be to actually be curious in exploring that, right? So that could be a way you can. And I don't know, I still see that as thought, a different quality of thought. So because the mind seems to be quieter, so it doesn't feel that anxious, you don't feel that rush. You seem to be to see things more clearly. So more and more I'm going away from this wording about shifts of consciousness, and every time I hear now this from the two principles, it doesn't make any sense for me anymore. Like, I know they're metaphors, but again, I'm going a lot back to everything comes from thought, and then just different qualities of thought that you tend to be able to access.
Which part, what did you say doesn't make sense to you anymore? I didn't catch.
No, it's some words. Sometimes some people talking about like even insights, the way people describe insights, the way describe like shifts of consciousness, and going back to the point I made before, like it seems more consciousness for me. It's just the switch. It's on or off. It doesn't have like depths like a lot of people talks about. I'm seeing more like on or off. So.
Oh, as opposed to like levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I get the levels thing in a way. Like, to me, it's like once you've learned or once you've had certain insights, let's say more so than learned, and it seems to me that maybe somewhat changes your level of consciousness and enables you to be able to hear things at a deeper level, of things you may have already heard before now suddenly make sense. So that's where I think of it as a level of consciousness. I don't know if that's what other people in the 3Ps call it, but
yeah, it's just, so it was, I think it's easy to get as a metaphor, and that's, I got it very easily when but now, because as you know, looking to the work of this guy David Bohm, he talks a lot about coherence and how a coherent thought reflects like it's closer to truth. So following a bit that rationale, it means that having coherent thinking probably is more clarity into your thinking, which in that metaphor would mean a shift in consciousness, right? So,
yeah.
But for me, I would rather, because for me, it's having like two parallel stuff, thought, consciousness. If it's all thought, then I don't need to think about consciousness. You know what I mean? I just think within thought, everything, you
Right.
can get the levels or clarity or coherence or whatever we tend to talk. But before, right, when I had the three principles, it was a bit confusing to join the two together.
Okay, I get you. I agree.
Yeah.
The three principles to me don't mean anything. I mean, the whole concept of separate realities and thought creating experience, that to me is key, but I don't really understand. I've never really seen the whole three principles and how they work together. I mean, I hear it all the time, but every now and then I sort of like, oh, that's what the three principles mean. But yeah, to me, like, yeah, thought is the important piece, and conscious. I mean, they're important, but they're all the same thing. I mean, and I think Sid Banks said that too in many audios, that it's really just one thing, but they're giving them different names. And I'm sure Helen has something to say about this. Do you, Helen? You're on mute, but let me unmute you. Okay.
I could probably say anything about absolutely anything.
That's why I called on you.
I can pull something out of the hat. No, I missed the start of what you were saying, but I've kind of caught up. Sorry about being a bit late, but it's kind of busy in the evening, just for me, just before the call. I don't know. I've listened. I tried listening to some of the Krishnamurti, David Bohm stuff, and the one with the group of scientists. You know, did you see any of the ones where he's talking to Krishnamurti? Is talking to the group of scientists, and one of them is David Bohm. Very interesting. Very interesting. But I kind of find this, just generally, not particularly talking about David Bohm, but there's a kind of a division between the very cerebral approach. I don't know if you're getting what I mean. And then the way over is the sort of much more the kind of the spiritual, the feeling, the experiential kind of approach. And I'm kind of more over there. But that's a bit kind of unstructured, in fact, massively unstructured. And I think intellectually, I can be quite lazy. And sometimes when I hear some of this stuff coming at me, all the philosophical and the metaphysical, all, you know, a whole different vocabulary. I was listening to something, I'll tell you what it was in a minute. But I was, you know, you'd have this frown that was like, felt like it was going to permanently be stuck in your forehead. You suddenly realize, what am I doing? Pain right here. The third eye was driven out big time. But at the same time, I think maybe there's a happy kind of a medium, as there is seeming with everything, where you can come to some kind of a middle ground, whether you're neither too just airy-fairy, woo-woo, spiritual. I'm just talking now, just feel free to knock me down, whatever. Or the massively mathematical, cerebral, scientific. And if there really is a big difference between the two. But when you seem to see different approaches from what I've been doing since we started really this exploration together. And I kind of go, oh, you know, and I get sort of a brain ache with some of this stuff. And David Bohm is kind of, I like him better. He's kind of easier and he's likable. And I think Rui seems to love all of that. I think he must be super, super intelligent. It makes me feel like I'm a complete, you know, I just don't get so much stuff. And I don't want to try really hard to intellectually understand a lot of it.
And that's, yeah, and I think that's fine.
Okay.
I think, yeah, everybody resonates with, you know, their own stuff. I can only take Krishnamurti for so long too, because, you know, it's
well,
this,
he went on about, that there's no witness, you know. I think Krishnamurti was very much of the opinion that no, there's no one that witnesses and that it is all one. But we know that, but he sort of, I think you might have mentioned this before, that he kind of dismisses all of that as being, no, it just causes conflict. He thinks that causes conflict, and I don't agree with him. When I'm thinking, I can't not agree with Krishnamurti, you know, Krishnamurti. You know, who am I to not agree with Krishnamurti, dead or not dead, you know? But today, I don't know if you saw where somebody was asking questions on Amir Karkuti's group, and Amir recommended somebody to listen to or watch a YouTube thing, which was Patterson, somebody called Patterson, interviewing, I think it's interviewing Dr. Bernardo Castro.
Oh.
And I said, I'll go there, because Amir Karkuti, surely, you know, he's going to recommend something that I will kind of, you know, it'll sort of, I don't know, speak to me in some way. But it kind of didn't, and I was very getting the frown and the pain in my head here. But
yeah, I think Amir had recommended him. He recommended him before, and I watched about half of it too, and I was like, no, I can't. It was too sciencey.
Yeah, well, at times I suddenly went, oh, for a long time I wasn't sure if there's such a thing as sides. Like, they're not on different sides, but, you know, to use that vocabulary, they weren't always agreeing, seemingly not agreeing about certain ways of looking at things. But I liked that Dr. Castro said that mind and matter do not form a true dichotomy.
I don't know what that means.
Well, that mind and matter are kind of the same. I think this was why Amir, they don't form a dichotomy where they must be separate, kind of like the form and the formless. And You know,
Okay.
a bit like what we were saying, like, is something really there when nobody's observing it? You know, matter, does matter remain matter even if nobody can see it and there's nobody experiencing it? And that was kind of the question that this person was asking, sort of going, I can't believe that, you know, that if when I go out for the day and there's nobody in the house, that the table is still a table, and, you know, it still exists as a table, you know, to put it like that. But it was actually quite an interesting recording. I'll post the link, and they speak about the Cheshire cat, and that the Cheshire cat can disappear and only the grin remain. You know, the grin of the Cheshire cat from what's the author's name?
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. Yeah.
Lewis,
But
C.S. Lewis.
I listened to it. An awful lot of it just went, or just caused my wrinkle to deepen, and I don't know what they're talking about. But now and then something came out of it. I hope I haven't completely shifted the conversation.
Well, that's fine. It actually brings up a good point for those who are new here, or anyone who might be watching this later. If we publicize it, that we do have a Facebook group to go along with the group, and we post. I post things that I've listened to or seen, or you know, different videos and stuff like that that are of interest to this theme that we're talking about, with the illusion of me kind of thing. So that's where, you know, Helen's talking about some of the things we've posted in the past. We did a lot of talk about Krishnamurti and David Bohm, and we have a bunch of interesting things in there.
Yeah,
actually, you know, which that reminds me that, you know, that guy, I think he calls himself GP, that somebody in the group who doesn't come on the calls put in, Barbara, I think it was her. And he was doing a live stat saying on Sunday that I just happened to get the notice, and so I watched him live, and what did he say? There was something really cool, that insight that I felt like I got from listening to him. He was saying that, it was really cool. It was, if our thoughts aren't, like, we always go to, you know, when we get like anxiety or something. This isn't what he said, but this is how I interpreted it. If we get like anxiety or something like that, we always, our thoughts like go to the worst case scenario, you know, where for sure they had a car crash or something. And he said, you know, we don't have to, and I guess in a way it's about changing thoughts, but it's really not. You know, we don't have to go to that. If we know that our thoughts don't mean anything, you know, why not instead almost turn it around and just start making it the best case scenario, you know? And you know, it's just a temporary measure that you can kind of do, but something about it, I have to listen to it again. It was really cool because, you know, it kind of infused the law of attraction in a way with all this stuff too. Like if the thoughts don't mean anything, then, you know, just turn them around however you want to. Like just create. That's what he was sort of saying. Like, just create your own world, your own reality. You can create it yourself.
And is that kind of like the idea of universal mind, really?
Yeah.
Because I think, now I could be wrong, but I think that Dr. Bernardo Castro actually does come down in favor of a universal kind of consciousness or universal mind. So I'm kind of liking him, because I'm more on that end of the scale. But, you know, I wonder, and just throw this out there, to what extent can this be an intellectual pursuit, a really provable, logical, mathematical exploration? Because that, you know, I don't know whether anything's provable or anything's certain, and can it ever be? I'd love to hear what Rui thinks. Is that what? I don't know. Is that what we're looking for?
Before he does, let me just say what I think about that is just that the problem with that, to me, is our science as it exists today is really an exploration of the material world already. So you can do all kinds of measurements and things in this world and prove stuff that's already here in the form, but it doesn't measure the formless. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that, and quantum mechanics or something may get there. I don't know, but yeah, Rui, you probably
Yeah, well, he spoke about
no more than we do.
You know, the cylinders with the little blob of ink and all of that, you know.
Yeah.
That was interesting. That was interesting. You have to tell Kim about that. Anybody else who's new.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't, and I guess that's what I learned a lot from. It was, for me, it was a huge surprise to see David Bohm as like a physicist that worked with Einstein, going from the quantum physics into the unknown, right? Where he tries to bridge the two. So the unknown, he says, as every theory, there needs to be an assumption. So the assumption is that there is a totality where everything is included, right? It's form and formless, everything is all one. So, and he tries to make the bridge always giving the hint that we have to use language first. So there's already problems here with the language, and
yeah.
And that's where I like his approach on the coherence. So he's, as more coherent you are, closer he believes or believed that you would be from what actually exists. And then he goes deep, like you said, on trying to actually explain the brain processes and what actually happens when we are trying to make sense of what is out there. But he's the one so far I've seen that actually went from the materialistic perspective to the unknown, and actually made a bridge, even if it's a theory or a perspective, or because what happens is ones are on one extreme saying the world is materialistic, others are on the other side saying it's not, it's formless, and we are now in the exploration, we are maybe in between. But and it helps to have some people who actually are pointing or giving some hints of what could be in the middle or what links the two things.
That's what I like about Tom Campbell too, because he's a physicist, and for those who don't know, I've mentioned him before here. He's a physicist who says that we are all in a virtual reality game, and he can prove it if he gets enough. He needs like call some universities to do some certain physics experiments that will prove it. But he also talks about, he's a good bridge between the two worlds as well, because he talks a lot about just our psychology and how to just, he explains why we moving towards love is the right way to go, like in a he can explain it in a physics kind of way or mathematical, that is something to do with entropy and stuff. I don't know how much you've listened to him, Rui, but that's what I really like about him, because it's science-y. He's obviously, I think he used to work at NASA or something like that a long time ago. He gets a little over the top in some ways, and I wonder about him, because he actually talks about, like, he can explore other galaxies in his mind or something like that. He doesn't talk about it too much because I think he's trying to be more mainstream. But
yeah, I mean, what I liked with the videos from David Bohm and Krishnamurti and the workshops that David Bohm actually, the seminars he did, and he has a bunch of group of people. He goes so slow, so he's trying always to help people to slow down and question almost everything they say, just so they realize how much implicit information was on their assumption. So, and that's what I really like with him. It's true, Ellen, that sometimes you get a little bit. It's hard because it actually makes you think about almost everything. But it doesn't. So it doesn't do big jumps, right? So it actually tries to slow down. What do you mean? Slow down. What do you mean? What do you mean by this word or by this affirmation or whatever? So he's very good with language. So for a physicist, it was very surprising that he has this passion about language.
Yeah.
So yeah. So he knows it's it's not truth. So we are trying to use what we have, so we can't use other stuff. So he says in his seminars, like, we have to accept that language is not perfect, but it's what we have. So there is no absolute in the language, but we can't say that it's all relative, otherwise we will never move forward. So we have to make some kind of exceptions, or like Garrett says, right? We have to make exceptions to explain the unexplainable, or the totality. So we have to assume there is divisions for people to kind of get on board, and then we say, oh, there is no division, and then so yeah, I think that's what I like him a lot, because he made me think a lot about and slow down with speeding up on conclusions.
Are there David Bohm videos where it's just him without Krishnamurti, where it's just him talking to Sue? Okay, those might be interesting. If you can post it, are they like available on YouTube or something?
Yeah, I mean, the one I posted at Ellen on that thread, what Ellen was asking, is that one is about consciousness. It's 11 videos. So he's it's about thought. In the end, everything with him goes to thought. And but he has a lot of people in the room. People are asking questions, and
that sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was more with Krishnamurti again, but if it's just him, that sounds different and interesting.
Yeah, you always start with the stages of the world, so that people kind of get on board and relate with how they see the world, and then starts diving into thought very, very, very slowly. So it's really cool.
Nice. Does any of our new people have anything to want to jump in at all? Questions or comments or anything you've seen? You can unmute yourself, or if you don't know, just wave and I can unmute you, or you don't have to. No, don't be shy. Wait a sec, Kim, you're muted. Unmute. Okay.
Hi, Helen, by the way.
Hi, Kim. Lovely to see you.
You too. I'm curious because I spoke to Helen about the idea of who am I. We spoke about this, didn't we, Helen? And that's something that I'm really interested in, and I wonder, do you talk about that? Is that something that often gets touched upon?
That's pretty much it. Even though it doesn't sound like it, that's basically what we're talking about in a way, because we're who am I? I never get so much those explorations that like Rupert Spira or whatever talks about, or a lot of the non-dual teachers, but that's really what we're exploring, because if we're not this personality that comes from our thought, then who are we? So a lot of the videos we watch and stuff, they're exploring this more. And if you saw some of the same ones too, it would probably make a little more sense. I don't know if you saw my blog post about the
not yet
stage. That might, Did you see it, Helen? That's what we were talking about.
I didn't see it today. I will.
Okay, yeah, no problem. But I don't know. Helen or Rui, you can maybe address that as well.
Well, we've spoken quite a lot we've spoken about so many different things. And you, Kimberly, if you watch something, it'd be free to you to just bring up something that you'd seen that you'd love to discuss, and something that you found very powerful, or you found you couldn't quite, what does anyone else think of this? You just put it out there. Somebody's echoing. And then we would discuss it, and which is it's a very free and easy format here, isn't it, Jill? And if you want to post something that you find, and then people might comment on it, or we can discuss it at the next on the next Zoom call. So we've spoken a lot about Nisargadatta Maharaj and the Parabrana, and you know, and the who am I kind of meditation, you know.
Mhm.
And so we have looked at quite a bit of that. I think new people would have access to the recordings, wouldn't they, Jill?
Once they sign on and get into the Facebook group, all the old stuff is all available.
Yeah.
All the past conversations,
Yeah.
and anything that we've posted to watch. You'd be busy for a little while if you want to be,
Yeah.
for a long while.
Yeah, I guess also maybe, I don't know if you feel comfortable, Kimberly, but it would be nice to know where you at with that exploration, maybe.
Oh, good question.
Well, you spoke about Ramana Maharshi to me, didn't you? Maybe that. What did you discover there, or can you remember?
Well, he says one of his, everyone who asked him a question was, he always directed them to this question, who am I? And he said, constantly ask yourself, who am I, and you'll discover that, well, I don't know, it was just this question that he asked everyone to really inquire about, and I do that. And then I just have this block. I'm like, because it just seems like I'm so real still. I still have this solid me, and I guess I want to go beyond that to the impersonal, or whatever you call it.
You're in the right place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because you're here, and because you've asked this question, and because you found that whole exploration interesting to you, means that you do, on some level, that you do have a knowledge and an awareness somewhere of what that means, or the beginnings of it, and it's a wonderful exploration, and I think it's massively worthwhile. And you started on a journey, not through choice. It's just something that's moved within you. That's the way it seems to me. I don't know. What would you think, Jill?
Oh, absolutely. Because the very fact, that you're, wondering, who am I? The average person on the street isn't wondering that, as far as I can tell. The people that I meet. So there's something there that you've heard already. That that's and that's what we're all exploring. Like, I mean, I don't know if you've seen any Tony Parsons. To me, he was the one that really, when I didn't know there were people who actually had what they call, he says, like, unraveled his self, his me. And that was why I started this exploration, after listening to him and seeing, oh my God, like, you can live in this world and not supposedly have this self, not believing your thoughts. Like, he still gets thoughts, but he's not attached to them. He's not giving them meaning. And I was like, wow, like, that seems really cool. Like, is that possible to do? And he gives meetings and stuff in England somewhere, and he the people all keep throwing questions at him too, and he keeps saying the same thing back, just sort of like Maharaj, or whatever his name is. I can never say them. But yeah, I mean, that you may be real interested in Tony Parsons too. You can find YouTube stuff on him, lots of that too. It's so interesting, because we're so, ourself seems, that voice in our head seems so like us, seems so much like us. But the more and more you start to detach from it and realize it's not, like, we can somehow live without believing that somehow.
Yeah, and I think what you said about being so solid, that's really interesting.
Being so solid, is that what you said?
Yeah, I think that's what Kimberly said, right? It
feels so real, and so kind of like I can't go beyond it. Yeah.
I like to think of it as that crazy person that lives in my head. A lot of my blog posts talk about that, because that's, if you start to disassociate with it that way, because it really is, it's freaking crazy, like mine is. I mean, maybe it's just me, but there's totally a crazy person in there that, thinks all these things are happening to me, and everybody does this, and they're all against me, or whatever it might be. it's all me, like me. All this
Yeah.
stuff is all happening to me, poor me. And it creates, it gives us that victim mentality. And yet that's not us. Like I can know it intellectually, but it's not us.
But don't you
It's
think
just,
sometimes,
go ahead.
sorry, like sometimes it's crazy and sometimes it's really negative, and then sometimes it can be so, it feels like it's really beautiful as well, sometimes, so it kind of, and
Well, and that is that thing that feels so beautiful. Is that it? Is that the same thing? Or is that the space that's, the space underneath the thoughts?
I think more likely.
To me, when it feels good, it's because it's that space underneath, or it's my ego, being superior to to everybody. That feels good a lot of times for me.
Yeah. I think on a very practical, if you want to put it as most practical, I think this exploration can lead to greater, less suffering. And I think the small self is kind of built on, it functions, it sees life as suffering. And thought tends to lead us towards suffering. And I'm not talking about necessarily physical pain, but thought pain, the pain that is caused, the suffering that is caused by our thinking. Even like when you wake up in the morning and you might be okay, okay for a minute, and then it's like, oh no, or oh no, this or that. And then you're looking to improve something, gain something, get rid of something, and you're thinking about it, and I think thought has become a bit of like chronic thinking, and overthinking is so common and causes so much suffering. And I think this exploration of like, who am I really, and if you're going to bring the three principles in here, like the role of thought in causing us to not function well and to be unhappy in life. This exploration, along with the three principles, is a very good way, I think, of having a happier life. To put it at its really practical and most simple.
And yet, though, that's a trap. That's the trap when we go into
that can be a trap, but
yeah,
it is putting it at a very basic sort of simple kind of way of viewing it.
It's more interesting because the Buddhist thing is all about suffering, I think. And many 30 years ago, when I first sort of read some Buddhist stuff, I didn't like it because they kept saying life is suffering, and I was like, no, because I was always a happy person, I thought. And I didn't get suffering. I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. I don't like this life is happy and fun. And so I didn't like it and I didn't get it. But now I understand what they meant by suffering. And it's that thought created stuff that it's expectations being unmet. It's paranoia. It's all these little things.
Small jealousies, it's competitiveness, it's comparison.
It's not being okay with what is.
Yeah, not being okay with how you are, who you are, lots of things. And I mean, we get so very used to it. It's like the fish swimming in the water,
Yes.
Like if Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, he talks about there about how much we're actually suffering, and it's just so normal.
Right. And so that was the thing I didn't get. Like, I'm like, no, I'm not suffering, but I didn't know that I was just this bundle of anxiety going around. I didn't know it could be different.
Yes.
That's what's so cool. Is when it goes away, you'd be like, oh my God, like to have a head that's not full of buzzing and pain, like in a way, without knowing it. That's your normal. You just think it's normal, but you can have a new normal, and that is less suffering. That when your new normal is more calmness. I mean, shit still happens, and you still. For me, I mean, I still get caught up and suffer.
I guess there's also kind of different levels of you being aware of this, right? So, for example, for me was first I kind of, okay, there's something else happening. So you kind of awake, the different stages of awakening, right? So you kind of get more information, then you see things different. Okay, so maybe the me is not actually, maybe it was created by conditioning. So you kind of understand that. And what I realized is that once it was clear for me that the me is an illusion, so it is created by our own thinking. You still continue, although you have that awakening or that understanding. You still, so your language still confirms it. Everybody around you still confirms it. Everything you are surrounded still gives life to that me. So that's where I find, and I think it would be much quicker for all of us if the language would not confirm it, if the other people would also be at the same awakening level you are. I think it would be much quicker, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, and that, which is a good thing about this group, because, you know, we can, there's not many places where you can talk about this.
Yes, absolutely.
Without giving you a white jacket.
I know.
Yeah, but that's what I love. I mean, we're very free to just bring anything that we found and bring it in here to discuss. And you might, you know, even some people wouldn't even like in their groups to say, I imagine, look what I'm exploring, you know, and everything's an illusion, and I want to look at who am I really, you know. It's a great freedom, and I think it's quite well done to Jill for introducing this and bringing this group about, because I don't know of any other, not that I'm aware of, certainly not a Facebook group or a Zoom, you know, going into a Zoom link all about this sort of thing, having conversations and discussions such as the ones we're having.
Yeah, they'll be coming to get us soon.
They might. We better, you know, keep it hush hush. Did you put something on Facebook?
I did, actually. Isn't it? It's funny though, because it seems so normal to me now, like to be talking about this. I forget. I mean, because I don't talk about it to people in real life, but it just seems so normal because I've embodied it, but I guess I've drunk the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And I wrote on the comments on the other day, I actually spoke slightly about this to a client of mine, but not exactly the entire. I didn't want to confuse her, of course, that like drop the bomb and leave it with.
Yes. Yeah, but, I have too, Rui. Yeah.
Yeah, like but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, it was just interesting to see that, because she felt I was very relaxed about not caring, about not having an agenda, not having goals, not having objectives. So she kind of felt, oh, I see that you are so relaxed about that. So I kind of believe in what you're saying. And that was, yeah, exactly. That was really cool to watch her saying that.
If you're talking to people who sort of already have, you know, heard of the 3 Ps and stuff, that, I mean, to me, it's not a stretch with those kind of people. It's just my friends, like in the neighborhood or whatever, that it's more, but like a client, I would totally, not that I have clients, but people I have conversations with, on Zoom or whatever about whatever. I mean, I totally, you have to talk about this because it's so key in the ending of the suffering, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you kind of
it is key. It is key, Jill, but I also struggle with the fact that I wish I can just, you know, take my experience or whatever I've got, which I can barely describe in words, right, and transplant it into somebody's head. Because sometimes I see in my close, you know, in my family, for example, just like Rui says, right, people are still so attached to their freaking suffering. And I have a way for you to fix it, but you have to do what I've done. There's no way you can give it to them, you know, just like a medicine, like
transmission.
Transmission. I don't know what to do. Sometimes I'm thinking, because I feel so much better myself, and I don't understand what's the big deal. Why do people get so worked up about stuff. It's just thoughts, or it's just, something that happens that still happens. I mean, does it help that you are also adding to a situation that could be, let's say, bad? You add your own not so great thoughts about it, or you're upset, or your anger for things not being the way you probably thought they would be. It really doesn't help. Like, can we move on? Can we just assess what's going on and just move on? Let's skip this part with getting us.
Yeah, I get it. I get what you say. I mean,
Me too.
One of the things that I don't know if you remember, but there was these two, the David Bowman, Krishnamurti, talking about the general and the particular. Like, people are living in the particular, so in their personal lives, right? And you are trying to share the impersonal, the general, and they have to somehow falling out of the illusion, or to get the impersonal. Otherwise, they will always they will always absorb what you're trying to say from their personal view, right? And it's like the two things don't talk to each other. So they were kind of even questioning, how can you, let's say you have learned everything you need to learn, and now you want to share with the world. How can you do that? And they were kind of saying it's almost impossible. So one person knows the truth, he wants to share with the others, but there is no bridge in between.
That's right.
That.
And
so I think that's why Jill is doing such a great job with her postings, right? Because that's where the bridge comes. But yeah. I'm not sure if people see that.
Some people do, like people that I know locally, they may read my stuff, but something more important for this, what I've seen lately, because I've been so frustrated too about just regular people in life, and not seeing it, not being interested, but I'm realizing more and more that's okay. It's really up to us to see them, to know that they're just living in the feeling of their thinking, and it doesn't matter if they know this or not. Like, more and more, you don't have to, it's not important for them to know it, even though it would be great if they did. If we see it in them, if we see, oh, well, of course they're acting that way because they're just living in the feeling of their thinking, there's something transformative about that alone. Just knowing that when you're with them, there's a calming effect or something there.
Yeah.
I think that's
maybe
moving more towards that is helpful.
Yeah, sometimes you can feel a frustration sometimes, Adriana, because you want it for them.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's frustrating. And the patience required just to be completely loving. And the best way, it looks like the best way of being loving is to just say, look, you've got to see this, and this is the way it is, and explore this. But it has to be sort of softly and patiently, and pointing and gently and slowly,
and not caring,
and not being attached to whether they ever do or not, because as Jill says, their own separate reality and their own, despite they have their innate wisdom, and what will happen, and it has to be the way it is, and the way it is perfect. You just have to smile.
Yeah, I know. I
know,
at times being frustrated, at times being okay with what's there, but sometimes I just have to walk out of the room because I can't just be, I say, okay, fine. Be angry. I can't do anything for that. I understand. I have this view of what you're saying, Jill. I know they're prisoners of their thinking in that moment. They're feeling their thinking. Anything that I would say, I don't have the right words to say anything. So I might as well just go out of the room.
And that's fine. You often don't need to say anything, because I feel it too. I know the same thing. Like, I might give them my perspective and say, have you thought of that? Maybe they're just, whoever they're mad at, and explaining it that way. But if they are right off the bat, no, blah, 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 then back down and don't even bother. You throw it out there to see if maybe they'll catch it.
Just in case. Yeah,
Yeah.
just in case. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people just aren't ready or willing. People are very attached to their current identities, and that's all thought created.
But like I told you before, exploring these things, who am I? Sometimes people ask you, who are you, right? Introduce yourself. I didn't know what to say right off the bat. I did not have something self-explanatory there. So now I even have it less so than before. Just for exploring this. Even less so. Who am I? What does it matter? Who am I? I can be somebody else every moment, right? Or nobody.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
I definitely feel the same way, especially, you do a webinar or something and they want you to introduce yourself. And I'm like, I don't even know anymore, which is, even though I do, but it seems so ridiculous to talk about all these past things that I did or whatever, that just like, it doesn't exist anymore. It seems so ridiculous.
And in that sequence to what you're saying, yesterday I was talking with my wife. She's studying to be an actress, and that's, going back a little bit to your original conversation, Jill, of the staging, and I was telling her how amazing it is and how close actors can get to this understanding, and then but they struggle because the other way around. So they are almost losing their identity because of the roles they play, but then they struggle to go back. You know what I mean? Because, I have to come back to my identity, otherwise I will be crazy or I'll lose myself. And I would say, oh my God, you would be so close. You should just let it go.
Yeah, that's their opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Because they do this every day, right? They will be better than us because they will be doing this activity every day, which we most likely can't do, because unless you talk about this every day, if you're surrounded by other people talking about other concepts and other things, it's reinforcing the identity and all these, and you operate a little bit automatically. So whatever you would like to do, you actually still go along with the stimulus you're constantly getting, right? But they are in the perfect environment for exploration.
Yeah, because they if they thought about it, or if somebody pointed it out to them, to see how identity is so flexible, because they can become a new person in their role, just like that. And that's really true of all of us when we realize that identity isn't fixed, that we're not who we think we are. We don't have to be who we think we are, because it changes. It's fluid. That's to me so freeing, to know we can be whatever or whoever we want within this world.
I was listening to something about acting just recently, funny enough, and somebody was making the point that that very often actors have to plunge into the depths of their own identity and find aspects of themselves that they may not have been aware of, and bring that out in order to really play a part in a convincing way. And sometimes these actors workshops can be brutally requiring of the actor to look into their own beings in a very, very deep, demanding kind of a way, and find aspects of their own personality that maybe they don't like to, whatever personality is, find aspects of themselves rather than take on another identity, which may not actually be possible to take on another identity, although they say you can be whoever you like. And someone was saying to me, like, oh, I go to this interview, I want to be completely honest. I don't want to be that dishonest person. This is a client as well. This dishonest person I have been. And I said, well, and I was reminding her that a lot of situations we take on different, when I might be different if I was going to the dentist than I might be if I was meeting my friend, than if I was talking to a client, than if I was at a job interview,
Yeah.
And that we tend, in social situations, we tend to be very different, depending on the situation and how we're feeling and our mood even. So that was an interesting point, though, about the different aspects and the depths of their own being and their own selfness, that they plunge into that. I don't know what your wife would think of that, Rui.
No, I mean, we talked. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to pick up on something that Helen said, and I totally agree. We sometimes behave very differently depending on the social situation or whatever. So in effect, we're more like, we're actors without even knowing that. We're doing that naturally, right? Moving from one situation, circumstance to another one. We don't even realize we're doing that, right?
Yeah.
My blog post. That's my blog post.
So
I'm
also one of those that I think, oh, I can't do this because this is not like me. But then sometimes you have to operate differently. So what I try to do is, because I don't think I would be a good actor in the real sense of the word. It would take a lot out of me to behave so differently. And now what you pointed out is I do it anyway. So we're all actors in different degrees.
Yeah,
right?
but maybe that's a kind of a story you are saying, because if you see yourself as the vehicle to do whatever it sounds right in the moment, right? So that actor, I don't know, because I see it slightly different. I see it more, instead of them going deep, I see them, maybe what they are doing is that they are getting rid of the layers of their own identity, and then they get naked, and then they become another another identity for the role they are playing. They might do that without actually knowing.
Maybe.
But yeah, I would do. It makes more sense for me that if you have a lot of yourself, of your own identity as an actor, you will not be a good actor on another role.
Right.
I don't know.
I think so too.
I did some acting, but these were two actors that were speaking, and somebody suggested to them and that they had seen some actors workshops, and the actors were saying that they had to explore their own depths. But then again, are they? I don't know. It moved back to who are they really and who am I, and is that part of you, or are you finding something or putting something in there that wasn't there to begin with? You could speak to a lot of actors and hear what their views of it would be.
Yeah, I think the space Jill was saying, that for me makes sense. Like, the space would be the emptiness from where you would then become another role, right? But yeah,
interesting.
Maybe that's why Michael Neal said when I asked him to read it, that it brought him back to his acting days, because maybe he was thinking about that too, playing the different parts and stuff too.
Yeah,
you'll have to read it, Helen. I'm curious what you think of that post about the stage.
I will read it. I will. When I was when I did some acting, I didn't do an awful lot. No serious parts, but I did some. I think my way of doing it was to really think myself into the other character. But I don't know. Can you do that without having some knowing of those aspects of the character already?
You would think.
That's a lot of to me. Like, if you were going to play somebody who was a very, very angry person, you'd need to maybe get in touch with the part of you that's capable of feeling great anger. I don't know.
Or if you knew someone like that, but if you knew someone like that, you think about them or whatever. That's why actors will go and live with somebody or whatever who's like the character, something like that.
Well, one of the actors said that if the audience are picking up that this person is acting, it has to be very, very convincing. That they don't want to see somebody acting. They want to really be convinced that this is real. Anyway, this is an interesting discussion for me, having done a lot of my family has done acting. And I find this discussion very interesting. but this particular thing about whether you are plunging the depths of your own character. Okay, maybe you'd watch somebody who's an angry person and see their physical characteristics or their tone of voice or their body mannerisms, because it's so physical as well. But I think you'd need to have some of it in you. I don't know.
I think the more you
I don't
understand psychology and stuff too, you know, you can.
Yeah, I think it goes. I mean, putting the 3 principles and the techniques into here. So what I'm sharing with my wife, for example, is she's studying and she's learning a lot of techniques. So you're right. You have a lot of techniques to go inside of your personality and explore your own emotions and bring it out and do all. So there's plenty of techniques for you to become an actor and apply them in stage in order to be convincing, in order to. So she, for example, she likes to be more intuitive, although the teachers kind of said, well, if intuition fails you in the moment, the techniques are there to make sure you don't break in the middle of the act, right? So that you somehow, but going back to what we talk here, I mean, if we have this natural intelligence and if we, I don't know, if we have intuition, and they have, of course, like Jill said, research time, they need time to explore the actor, they start doing movements just to see how the body reacts to the character and all that stuff. So she puts a lot of her intuition, and she starts also from zero, and then she ends up with a completely different role and personality, the way she walks, the way she talks.
Yeah. I certainly, when you see some actors and they look, you know, you just can't believe it's not makeup. It's just they look completely like another person. It's unbelievable. You know,
so
really
that's our homework.
That's
our homework for this week. Let's all just become a different character for the weekend. You know, just to show.
I can do that.
To show our identity isn't solid, you know, that it's nothing, that it's made up, and that we can make it be anything we want to be.
Let's swap roles.
That sounds hard. I don't know if we know each other well enough.
Yeah, you have to go back and watch the recordings.
But to me, that's the big insight. I would say for this call, that we're all actors. Actually, we're all actors, and we don't even know it.
Exactly.
I really like this one. Yeah.
And that's a good place to end it. We're well over time here, which is fine. But,
oh wow!
It's always so interesting. We don't even know what time it is. I hope some of you new people here have enjoyed the conversation. Most of you stayed. If you're interested in joining us, just let me know and I'll give you whatever links you need, and it'd be great to have you with us.
They're probably thinking, oh God, what am I doing here?
I'll never hear from them again. They're just being polite by not leaving.
No, I really enjoyed it. It was really nice. Good. I'm gonna do the homework, definitely, and be a different character. I don't know who yet, but I'm gonna be a different character.
Yay!
Good, try it. That'll be awesome. It'll be cool if we talk about next week if we do this at all. See what happens. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, everyone. Thank you, and I'll post this up in the Facebook group in a half hour or so when it's done. Whatever it has to do,
Jill.
Processing.
Thank you, Jill.
Guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Kim.
Bye.
Bye, Joanne.
Bye.
Bye, Rui. Bye, Jill.
Bye.